Jordan, so Black Monday comes, and that's the end of Rothschild, and you must have been thinking at the time your Wall Street career too.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking because after 6 or 7 months of being a cold caller, like just, dialing the phone and passing it to someone else because I didn't have my license yet. When I finally passed my Series 7, got my license, my first day, literally my first day as a broker, that I was on the phone dialing for myself. The market crashed 508 points. Rothschild is, essentially out of business by the end of the day, but it took a couple of weeks after they shut down permanently, but they were already that was it. They were done that first day. So it was really, really sad. And I remember the brokers were walking around saying, "Oh, damn, the game is over." I'm like, "What do you mean the game is over? I didn't get to play. I was a slave." They're like, "Oh, no, the game's over." Then that day, and down on the ground floor was the newsstand, the New York Post, like the death of Wall Street. All brokers will be cab drivers. I'm like, I should have stayed in dental school, right? It was really unbelievable. When I got home, my first wife, I've not done great in the wife department. I've got a few marriages, but I think I got it right this time, hopefully. And but she unfortunately didn't know the market crash. She'd taken our last dollars. We were really struggling, and she bought a bottle of champagne. And I walked through the door. She's like, "How did you break the rate? Because everyone thought I'd do so well as a broker." I was like,
"Oh, no."
Give it up. And she said, "Our last buddy on the champagne." I collapsed in her arms and started to cry. I literally, we all take that punch. I'm sure you've been there. You're a mover shaking yourself. You have ups and you have downs, and sometimes when things are going bad, you think the world is just against you, God's against you. You think you have the Midas touch in reverse. Everything you touch turns to shit. Basically, it was like really. I really was like. I had this moment where I collapsed, and I just said, I can't do this anymore. I should have just been like the normal route, and that lasted about 5 minutes because I didn't have longer than that, couldn't pay the rent. So after I had a good cry, we sat there, we opened up the help wanted section, and we just started looking for other jobs like outside of Wall Street, like sales. And after about a few minutes, she stumbled on some ad. It was like stockbrokers like in Long Island, and it's part-time, full-time. And there was so much that didn't make sense, but like stockbrokers on Long Island, like this is back in the late 80s where there was, everything was on Wall Street. And then it was part-time stockbrokers, and then when I answered, I called the phone, and they're like, Investor Center. I'm like, whoa. It was like a gruff voice. I'm like, what about Morgan Stanley or Goldman? It's like Investor Center. I never even heard, it sounded like a weird name. And they asked me to come down and do the next day. I went down and I walked in. I was like, just shocked. It was like nothing in the office that, reeked of wealth, success, or Wall Street. It was just like, it was going back to like the caveman days. It was like no computers on the desks. There was young kids in jeans and sneakers. They were just, cursing, but a different type of cursing at the clients, and lying through their teeth. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? Like, oh, imagine we sell penny stocks. And I'm like, what's a penny stock? Like, I legitimately did not know what a penny stock was, other than that it traded at a lower price. I didn't understand the context, what it was really all about. And in that moment, there was a scene in the movie where I say, is this legal? Is that legal? And he's like, well, that's not true. You know what he said? Of course it's legal.
So we actually have this clip teed up from the movie, the fake you, portraying this moment. Leonardo DiCaprio, here it is.
Yeah, they're penny stocks. Companies that can't get listed on NASDAQ, they don't have enough capital, their shares trade here.
Is this stuff regulated, or you guys, what are you doing here?
Sort of.
Sort of? Jesus Christ, the spread on these is huge.
Yeah, and that's the point. What's your name again?
Mine, Jordan Belfort.
Jordan, what do you get on a blue chip stock?
I make 1%. I did make 1%.
Pink Sheets, it's 50.
It's 50%? 50% commission?
Yep.
For what?
It's our markup for our services.
So good. So you get the dollar signs in your eyes at that point. Like 50's a lot better than 1.
The most important thing, and I mentor a lot of young people. I do big events around the world, small events, and there's a lot of people in their, teens and 20s. And one of the things I always say to them is, be really careful. That seems very misleading, and I wish they wouldn't have done that. But that's one of the, it's an amazing movie. But I just think that it's not accurate in the sense that if he would have said that to me, I would have run out the door. Like I was a really good kid that never broke, and it wasn't like my nature to go and if they said, I don't know if this is, maybe it's legal, I would say, bye-bye, I'll find something that's legal. But that's not what he said. He said the opposite. He said, of course, what do you mean? We are SEC, we report to SEC, NASD member. So, and the reason that's so important is because right now, today in the world, for all you people listening, especially young people, you're going to find yourself walking into offices and businesses where they're ripping people off. And as a young person, like what I was, you assume it's okay because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be happening. They would have shut it down. Some regulator would have made it stop, but it's not true. These things often take many years to be shut down, if ever. So, just be careful that if your alarm goes off in your stomach and it's not legit, it's probably not. Like, don't just assume they say, oh, of course it is. Or if they say, maybe run the other way. That's my advice.
Mm-hmm. I've had jobs in the past where you see ethics compromised here and then there. And then you detect a pattern and you have to ask yourself, do I stay or do I go, right? Like that's a one-off, can happen anywhere. But when once you realize, oh, this is not an ethical place to be, it's a character test. And actually, it's one of the questions I have for you, because I'll tell you, I know a guy in New York who he was arrested and he was accused of being kind of a mini Madoff. And the jury was hung when all was said and done, so that was a good result for him. But it did come out later that he had cheated on his Series 7. He had another guy go in and take it for him. And I thought to myself, these early ethical compromises, how often do they result in just the loss of ethics, right? They're gone. Once you cross that line, it's tough to cross back over.
One of the things I always say when I'm out there speaking, I say, you can't be half pregnant when it comes to ethics. It doesn't work that way. It would be nice if it did, but it doesn't. I'll tell you why it doesn't. It's because, and my story illustrates this perfectly. I was doing everything right. When I started my firm, I was doing everything right. And I had this one moment where I was faced with making a decision of taking a very large amount of cash from someone. And the person said, everyone's doing it. And I knew it was wrong. I was like, well, and I figured it was being done. I knew I wasn't the only person that had done this, but I knew it was wrong. I said, well, you know what? I'll do this once and then won't do anything again. But once you take that first step over the line, what happens is your line moves slightly to the wrong side, a slight bit. So next time, and you'll do things right, but next time you step over the line, you'll step a bit further. And then a bit further still, and through these tiny, almost imperceptible nudges towards the dark side, you can very quickly find yourself doing things you thought you would never do, associating with people you never thought you'd associate with, and it all seems perfectly okay. You don't think it's wrong because your line has moved. Your morality, your ethics, your compass, it's these little nudges, and before you know it, it's insanely off. It's like when you dip your toe into a piping hot bathtub, right? You're like, oh my God, it's so hot. And then 5 minutes later, you're submerged under the water and it feels perfect, right? When I was a kid, I was like, oh, I guess the water cooled down. No, the water didn't cool down. You just got used to it. It's like, and that's what happens. And, it happened to me so profoundly that when I got my first subpoena from the SEC for something I wasn't really even guilty of, it's just, I went and vomited. I was, oh my God, my life is over. I got a subpoena. What am I going to do? It was a civil subpoena. And I was just so nervous. I was devastated. My life is over. 2 years later, I'm through the paper shred. You become, it's really weird how that happens, Yeah. And very, very careful with your ethics. And the really sad part is that, you make more money by being ethical. It just takes a little bit longer. But the big money is by being ethical.